History is full of moral U-turns. Laws once celebrated are now condemned. Institutions defended as humane are remembered as cruel. And policies framed as beneficial later shock us with their consequences. But what about today? Which of our current practices will future generations look back on with disbelief or even shame? Welcome to the making of Britain. Imagine a modern policymaker. They draft regulations, oversee budgets, sign guidance documents, and respond to media inquiries. Like the guardians, administrators, and colonial officers before them, they believe the righteousness of their work. They implement welfare reforms, technological policies, surveillance systems, and public health measures. They rely on data, precedent, and the logic of efficiency. They trust that their actions are just. But as history reminds us, conviction is not the same as moral infallibility. Let's take a moment to review. Over the past 400 years, Britain has shifted on fundamental issues: harsh punishment versus rehabilitation, poverty as moral failure versus social structural problems, colonialism as benevolent rule versus exploitation, institutional abuse as unavoidable versus scandalous. Patterns emerge. Well-intentioned systems produce harm, and it often takes decades, even generations, to admit it. So if history repeats, what are our modern equivalents? Consider technology, facial recognition, AI-driven decision-making, automated welfare allocation. Policies promise efficiency and fairness. Administrators assure the public these systems are unbiased and rational. Yet bias, oversight gaps, and unintended consequences lurk. Algorithms that decide who receives benefits, who gets flagged for fraud, or who is monitored by police. These carry moral weight. Errors and inequalities often take years to surface. History whispers, be cautious when morality is delegated to machines. Another area is the environment. Climate interventions, urban development, energy policies, all framed as progress. But some decisions may harm future generations. Intensive farming, deforestation, reliance on fossil fuels, poorly planned urban sprawl. Just as workhouses were defended as humane, these policies are defended as necessary or inevitable. The question emerges, will future historians label these choices as negligence, misjudgment, or moral blindness? Modern governments face challenges of national security, public health, and crime prevention. Surveillance, data retention, and emergency powers are often framed as protective. Yet history warns us that protective measures can become intrusive, disproportionate, or permanent. Today's safeguards may be tomorrow's overreach. Here's a thought I want you to consider. If we normalise control for the sake of convenience or safety, what freedoms will we lose without realising? Put your reflections in the comments. I'd love to hear what modern policies you think may require future U-turns. Economic systems are another arena. Policies that seem fair may reinforce structural inequalities. Access to housing, healthcare, and education often carries hidden biases. In 19th century Britain, poverty was moralised. Today, systemic disadvantages are sometimes rationalised as personal responsibility. Future historians may look back and wonder why we accepted these disparities for so long. A recurring theme across all episodes: people defend policies because they make sense at the time. Efficiency, fairness, tradition, or necessity can mask unintended harm. Administrators and policymakers believe they are moral actors. Societies accept these frameworks unquestioningly until evidence and public scrutiny reveal flaws. History shows that moral clarity often lags behind policy, technology, and social change. The real U-turns happen when society reflects critically. Workhouses were abolished, colonial abuses were condemned, and child labour became illegal. But reflection requires courage, evidence, and imagination. It requires asking uncomfortable questions. Are our interventions truly just? Who benefits and who is harmed? What will history judge us for? As we look at AI, climate policy, civil liberties, and social inequality, we must recognise that moral lag is ongoing. Pause for a moment. Consider one policy, one technology, or one social trend today that might seem necessary now, but morally questionable in 50 years. Share it below. Your perspective matters. What patterns do we see? Belief in institutional righteousness delays moral correction. Fear of disruption postpones admission of wrongdoing. Cultural assumptions hide systemic harm. Partial exposure triggers reform only after undeniable evidence. The lesson is simple. Moral vigilance is ongoing. Waiting for exposure or scandal allows harm to persist unnecessarily. History is both cautionary and instructive. Britain's moral U-turns remind us that systems can act morally and still harm. Good intentions are insufficient without constant scrutiny. Public engagement is essential to reveal hidden consequences. I leave you with a challenge. Observe, question, and comment on the moral landscape of your world. History does not repeat exactly, but the patterns endure. The final U-turn is not inevitable. It is ours to prevent or enable. Thanks for walking a little further along the path that made Britain. If you liked it, there's a button especially for that, and I'd appreciate a click. It really helps. If you subscribe, there's a whole back catalogue of videos like this for you to discover, including this one, chosen especially for you by YouTube. Have a look. I think you'll like it. So until next time, thank you so much. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.